Well, hi, everyone. This segment of my living eulogy is probably about the career that I had. Certainly, I talked about it prior to us moving to California in 1972, but this will be the first time away from Mobil Oil and being my own entrepreneur. We moved to California and I started a rigid polyurethane manufacturing facility in San Fernando, California. Unfortunately, a year after we got started, had a fire and lost the entire facility. So we moved to Chatsworth. We started out in a very smaller place in Chatsworth, and we started developing some real nice technologies, okay, that permitted us to gain some big contracts with major manufacturers. We literally had to move to 9300 Mason Avenue in Chatsworth, which was a 30,000 square foot facility. We set up a complete shop in there uh, and a complete manufacturing facility for making cabinet doors. And we had a double shift going in 1973 when Saudi Arabia and the Middle Eastern countries shut down OPEC. And all of a sudden, chemical prices went up the gazoo if, in fact, they were available. We were running a two-shift operation with $1 million worth of business already signed for when that occurred. We certainly were forced to shut down the entire facility, but at that time, we were working on something that had started when we were in San Fernando. And in the early 70s, one of the most popular industries was the van conversion industry. And when I went out and looked, one of the people that brought something to us, and we started working with it, there were only three models of vans that were being produced and being rehabilitated. There were Ford, Chevy, and Dodge. Each one of them had a center panel in between the driver and the passenger seat due to the fact that the motor came in there. Well, each one of those had a place where we could create a cup holder for the dashboard, which is exactly what we did. And I went to a manufacturer in West LA and we worked out some arrangements so we had the exclusive rights to the sale of this product. I then, in working somewhere down in Anaheim, they had a convention for the Specialty Equipment Manufacturers Association. And I met a young man just about the same age as me, Herb Seymour, and his company was Zantec Corporation, which was quite bringing the scientific elements to this new van conversion industry. And I became vice president of sales of Zantec Corporation. However, very much like Mobil Oil, my family was always the most important. And right at that time, I had become one of the first people to start at Region 33 AYSO soccer program. Why did I do that? In my junior year in college, a new baseball coach came in who also was a soccer coach. And he made us go out and basically work out with the soccer team during the fall when we weren't playing. And when ASO started, I used to bring my daughters out to Balboa Park every Friday afternoon for practice. And one day I met the coach and I saw him doing something that I had to call him over. He was setting up for a basketball pick and roll play, which is not correct in soccer. And he asked me how I knew that. And I said, well, that's part of the rules of learning the game. He said, welcome aboard, coach, took off his whistle. And that's how I became coach. And I coached for 9 years, 5 years as the head of the referees division. And during that time with Zantac, Herb Seymour had a little bit problems with his two girls and his wife. And all of a sudden, he started changing the day that we had a meeting with everybody involved, which was a weekly meeting that used to start on Monday. Now, all of a sudden, became Friday at 2 o'clock when I had to be at soccer practice at 3 o'clock. This was too much taking away from me. And I worked out with Dennis Posen, and who was the manufacturer that we worked out the development of the program with. And we started doing something just separately from Zantac Corporation. That led us to the 1980s. This was a very special time in my timing. It was a complete change in the way things were being done in what I'm going to call the importing business. The city of Los Angeles prohibited manufacturers from furniture manufacturers from getting another spray booth permit. They had to purchase the permits from another manufacturer who was going out of business. So it limited the amount of furniture manufacturing, which was spraying lacquer and spray paints, and yet collecting them so they don't go in the atmosphere. This led me to take somebody that I had been working with and introduced to, who was in Taiwan. And we started working out that through the 80s, I really was doing some importing business from Taiwan first. And then we went over to mainland China, and it looked like we were going to be doing things there. But what we did do was set up a timber manufacturing facility in Taichung, Taiwan, midway down the coast from Taipei. And what we did was we supplied timber doors to entertainment center manufacturers and timber desktops to roll top desk manufacturers throughout the United States. As it turned out, we were a little too small for mainland China. So the people that I was working with decided, let's go to Mexico and we'll start something there. Well, that turned out to be pretty good reasoning for what we were doing till I found out about the graft and corruption that took place down there. Then, when the owner of one of the factories that we were working at decided to give it to someone else, I decided it was time to change the vision of where we were going. And I went out and I bought every golf magazine that was on the newsstand in the valley, San Fernando Valley, in the Tarzana area. And I took it back to our little office that we had on Tampa Avenue, north of the freeway. And I started looking through, and I saw something about this remote controlled little robot. It was being made in Toronto, Canada. And I called the company up and I said, wow, can I become your sales rep in the western part of the United States? And they gladly took me on, sent me samples, and I went to Camarillo Springs Golf Course with this little golf robot. And the general manager at, I used to play there, we became pretty close business associates. And he got involved with me in developing this thing further. Well, the company went bankrupt, and the new company that took over asked me if I would become a distributor. And I said, absolutely would love to. And they sent us 10 carts that we put in so that people could rent them instead of having to carry their bags. It all worked out pretty well till they went bankrupt. I then, working with the general manager, Ron Stevens, decided that we have to build our own robot. And what he did was he went to a gentleman who had been developing technology that was beyond the scope of my imagination at the time. And he said, sure, I would really like to do this. And we partnered with that man, Richard Ulinsky. He lived in Pasadena, and Ron and I would travel out to him as he was developing the thing. Well, we needed funding to get this done. And as it happened, an Israeli company centered down near LAX airport was in, they asked me for some reason, there was an interchange using the motors that we were going to build with and what they were wanting to do. And they would like asked if I would come down there with my group and talk to them about what kind of funding we would need. I still remember what Harry asked me that afternoon. So, Bob, how much geld do you need? This was an Israeli company. And I told him about $30,000 to $40,000 to get started. And he said, stop at the treasurer on the way out. There'll be a check there for you. Wow. We all just sat back, but in a way, we developed the PK2 golf robot. And we will have a limited time to be able to show you some of the videos of that time right now as we are going to stop this